Hey y'all, it's Kim. So this is again the report of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Committee study of the Central Intelligence Agency's detention and interrogation program. Remember, after 9/11, many suspected terrorists were detained for extended periods and tortured, according to this report. This will be video 17 of that series, since there's a 700 something pages. I don't know if we'll get through all of it, but we'll do our best. But anyway, let's get started. So, this list does not include examples in which CIA interrogators were authorized to use the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques, but then implemented the techniques in a manner that diverged from the authorization. Examples include Abu Zubair and, as detailed, KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, whose interrogators developed methods of applying the waterboard in a manner that differed from how the technique had previously been used and how it had been described in the Department of Justice. This count also excludes additional allegations of the unauthorized use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. Over the course of the CIA's detention and interrogation program, numerous detainees were subjected to the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques by untrained interrogators. As noted, the CIA did not conduct its first training course until November 2002, by which time at least 9 detainees had already been subjected to the techniques. The DCI's January 28, 2003 guidelines, which stated that the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques may be employed only by approved interrogators for use with specific detainees, raised the additional issue of approved techniques used by unapproved interrogators. The January 28, 2003 DCI guidelines did not explicitly require CIA headquarters to approve who could use the CIA standard interrogation techniques, including techniques that were not previously considered standard and that would later be reclassified as enhanced interrogation techniques. Rather, the DCI guidelines required only that all personnel directly engaged in the interrogation be appropriately screened, that they review the guidelines, and that they receive appropriate training in the implementation of the guidelines. CIA headquarters authorizes water dousing without Department of Justice approval. Application of technique reported as approximating waterboarding. CIA headquarters approved requests to use water dousing, nudity, the abdominal slap, and dietary manipulation. Despite the fact that the techniques had not been reviewed by the Department of Justice, interrogators used the water dousing technique in various ways. At detention site Cobalt, detainees were often held down naked on a tarp on the floor, with the tarp pulled up around them to form a makeshift tub with cold water or refrigerator water, oof, was poured on them. Ew. Others were doused or hosed down repeatedly while they were shackled naked in the standing sleep deprivation position. The same detainees were subsequently placed in rooms with temperatures ranging from 59 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Oof. No, thank you. I don't like cold. Okay, other accounts suggest detainees were water doused while placed on a waterboard. Although CIA headquarters approved the use of the water dousing interrogation technique on several detainees, interrogators used it extensively on a number of detainees without seeking or obtaining prior CIA authorization or without seeking or obtaining prior authorization from CIA headquarters. Sorry, I got that mixed up. Okay, in interrogation sessions on April 5th, 2003 and April 6th, 2003, senior CIA interrogator redacted and another interrogator used the water dousing techniques on detainee Mustafa Al Hassawi at detention site Cobalt. Al Hassawi later described the session to a different CIA interrogator redacted, who wrote that Al Hassawi might have been waterboarded or subjected to treatment that could be indistinguishable from the waterboard. An email from the interrogator stated, "We did not prompt al-Hassawi. He described the process and the table on his own. As you know, I have serious reservations about watering them in a prone position because if not done with care, the net effect can approach the effect of the waterboard. If one is held down on his back on the table or on the floor, the water poured in his face, I think it goes beyond dousing, and the effect to the recipient could be indistinguishable from the waterboard. I have real problems with putting one of them on the waterboard for dousing. Putting him in a head down attitude and pouring water around his chest and face is just too close to the waterboard. And if it is continued, it may lead to problems for us." Several months later, the incident was referred to the CIA Inspector General for investigation. A December 6, 2006 Inspector General report summarized the findings of this investigation, indicating that water was poured on al-Hassawi while he was lying on the floor in a prone position, which in the opinion of at least one CIA interrogator quoted in the report can easily approximate waterboarding. The OIG could not corroborate whether al-Hassawi was strapped to the waterboard when he was interrogated at detention site Cobalt. Both of the interrogators who subjected al-Hassawi to the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques on April 6, 2003, and that said that al-Hassawi cried out for God while the water was being poured on him, and one of the interrogators asserted that this was because of the cold temperature of the water. Both of the interrogators also stated that al-Hassawi saw the waterboard and that its purpose was made clear to him. The Inspector General report also indicates that al-Hassawi's experience reflected the way water dousing was done at detention site Cobalt, and that this method was developed with guidance from CIA, CTC attorneys, and the CIA's Office of Medical Services. During the same time that al-Hassawi claimed he was placed on the waterboard in April of 2003, a CIA linguist claimed that CIA detained Abu Hazim had also been water doused in a way that approximated waterboarding. Redacted, a linguist in country, redacted from 2003 until whatever 2003, told the OIG that when water dousing was used on Abu Hazim, the cloth covered Abu Hazim's face, and CIA Officer 1 poured cold water directly on Abu Hazim's face to disrupt his breathing. The linguist said that when Abu Hazim turned blue, physician's assistant redacted removed the cloth so that Abu Hazim could breathe. This allegation was reported to CIA Inspector General on August 18, 2004. The CIA reported this incident as a possible criminal violation on September 10, 2004 to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Eastern District of Virginia. The Inspector General report concluded that there was no corroboration of the linguist's allegation, stating there's no evidence that a cloth was placed over Abu Hazim's face during water dousing or that his breathing was impaired. Hambali fabricates information while being subjected to the CIA's enhanced interrogation technique. In the summer of 2003, the CIA captured 3 Southeast Asian operatives, Zubair, Lily, and Hambali. These captures are discussed later in the summary in the section entitled The Capture of Hambali. In August of 2003, Hambali was captured and transferred to CIA custody. Despite assessments that Hambali was cooperative in the interview process without the use of more intrusive standard interrogation procedures, much less the enhanced measures, CIA interrogators requested and obtained approval to use the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques on Himbali approximately a month after his transfer to CIA custody. In late 2003, Himbali recanted most of the significant information he had provided to the interrogators during the use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. Recantations CIA officers assessed to be credible. According to a CIA cable, he had provided the false information in an attempt to reduce the pressure on him and to give an account that was consistent with what Hambali assessed the questioners wanted to hear. CIA officers later suggested that the misleading answers and resistance to interrogation that CIA interrogators cited in their request to use the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques against Hambali and associated CIA detainee Lilly may not have been resistance to interrogation, but rather the result of issues related to culture and their poor English language skills. After the use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques, CIA headquarters questions detention of detainee and recommends release. Detainee transferred to U.S. military custody and held for an additional 4 years. In October of 2003, the CIA interrogated Arsala Khan, an Afghan national in his mid-50s who is believed to have assisted Osama bin Laden in his escape to the Tora Bora Mountains in late 2001. After 56 hours of standing sleep deprivation, Arsala Khan was described as barely able to enunciate and being visibly shaken by his hallucinations depicting dogs mauling and killing his sons and family. According to CIA cables, Arsala Khan stated that the interrogator was responsible for killing them and feeding them to the dogs. Arsala Khan was subsequently allowed to sleep. 2 days later, however, the interrogators returned him to standing sleep deprivation. After subjecting Khan to 21 additional hours of sleep deprivation, interrogators stopped using the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques due to lack of information from Arsala Khan, pinning him directly to a recent activity. 3 days after the reporting about Khan's hallucination and after the interrogators had already subjected Khan to the additional 21 hours of standing sleep deprivation beyond the initial 56, CIA headquarters sent a cable stating that RDG and the Office of Medical Services believe that Arsala Khan should not be subjected to additional standing sleep deprivation beyond the 56 hours because of his hallucinations. After approximately a month of detention and the extensive use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques on Arsala Khan, the CIA concluded that the detainee Arsala Khan does not appear to be the subject involved, current plans or activities against U.S. personnel or facilities, and recommended that he be released to his village with the cash payment. CIA interrogators at detention site Cobalt instead transferred him to U.S. military custody, where he was held for an additional 4 years, despite the development of significant intelligence indicating that the source who reported that Arsala Khan had aided Osama bin Laden had a vendetta against the Arsala Khan's family. A year after detention site Cobalt opens, the CIA reports unsettling discovery that we are holding a number of detainees about whom we know very little. In the fall of 2003, CIA officers began to take a closer look at the CIA detainees being held in country, raising concerns about both the number and types of detainees being held by the CIA. CIA officers in country provided a list of CIA detainees to CIA headquarters, resulting in the observation by CIA headquarters that they had not previously had the names of all 44 CIA detainees being held in that country. At the direction of CIA headquarters, the station in country completed an exhaustive search of all available records in an attempt to develop a clearer understanding of the CIA detainees. A December 2003 cable from the station in country to CIA headquarters stated that in the process of this research, we have made the unsettling discovery that we're holding a number of detainees about whom we know very little. The majority of CIA detainees in country have not been debriefed for months, and in some cases for over a year. Many of them appear to us to have no further intelligence value for the CIA and should properly be turned over to the U.S. military, to country redacted authorities, or to third countries for further investigation and possible prosecution. In a few cases, there does not appear to be enough evidence to continue incarceration, and if this is in fact the case, the detainee should be released. Records indicate that all of these CIA detainees have been kept in solitary confinement. The vast majority of these detainees were later released, with some receiving CIA payments for having been held in detention. CIA detention sites in country lacked sufficient personnel and translators to support the interrogation of detainees. Throughout 2003, the CIA lacked sufficient personnel and adequate translators to conduct debriefings and interrogations in country. Based on this personnel shortage, a number of detainees who were transferred to CIA custody were not interrogated or debriefed by anyone for days or weeks after their arrival at CIA detention facilities in the country. As noted in a cable from the CIA station in country in April of 2003, station is supporting the debriefing and or interrogation of a large number of individuals and is constrained by a lack of personnel, which would allow us to fully process them in a timely manner. Other medical and psychological and behavioral issues. CIA interrogations take precedence over mental care or medical care. While CIA headquarters informed the Department of Justice in July 2002 that steps will be taken to ensure that Abu Zubaydah's injury is not in any way exacerbated by the use of these enhanced interrogation methods, CIA headquarters informed CIA interrogators that the interrogation process would take precedence over Abu Zubaydah's medical care. Beginning on August 4, 2002, Abu Zubaydah was kept naked, fed a bare bones liquid diet, and subjected to the nonstop use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. On August 15th, 2002, medical personnel described how Abu Zubaydah's interrogation resulted in the steady deterioration of his surgical wound from April 2002. On August 20th, 2002, let me make sure. Okay. On August 20th of 2002, medical officers wrote that Abu Zubaydah's wound had undergone significant deterioration. Later, after one of Abu Zubaydah's eyes began to deteriorate, CIA officers requested a test of Abu Zubaydah's other eye, stating that the request was driven by our intelligence needs, vice humanitarian concern for AZ. The cable relayed, "We have a lot riding upon his ability to see, read, and write." In April 2003, CIA detainees Abu Hazim and Abd al-Karim each broke a foot while trying to escape capture and were replaced in casts. CIA cables requesting the use of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques on the two detainees stated that the interrogators would forego cramped confinement, stress positions, walling, and vertical shackling due to the detainees' injuries. Notwithstanding medical concerns related to the injuries, both these detainees were subjected to one or more of the CIA enhanced interrogation techniques prior to obtaining CIA headquarters approval. In the case of Abu Hazim, on May 4th, 2003, the CIA regional medical officer examined Abu Hazim and recommended that he avoid all weight-bearing activities for an additional 5 weeks to his broken foot. In the case of Abd al-Karim, on April 18, 2003, a CIA physician assistant recommended that al-Karim avoid extended standing for a couple of weeks. 6 days later, on April 24, 2003, CIA headquarters reviewed x-rays of al-Karim's foot, diagnosed him with a broken foot, and recommending no weight bearing and the use of crutches for a total of 3 months. Despite these recommendations, on May 10th, 2003, CIA interrogators believed that both Hazim and al-Karim were strong mentally and physically due to their ability to sleep in the sitting position. On May 12, 2003, a different CIA physician assistant who had not been involved in the previous examinations, determining the need for the detainees to avoid weight bearing, stating that it was his opinion that Abu Hazim's and Abd al-Karim's injuries were sufficiently healed to allow being placed in the standing sleep deprivation position. He further reported that he had consulted with CIA's Office of Medical Services via secure phone, and OMS medical officer concurred in this assessment. CIA headquarters approved the use of standing sleep deprivation against both detainees shortly thereafter. As a result, both detainees were placed in standing sleep deprivation. Abu Hazim underwent 52 hours of standing sleep deprivation from June 3rd through 5th, 2003, and Abd al-Karim underwent an unspecified period of standing sleep deprivation on May 15th, 2003. Wow. CIA detainee Asadallah was left in the standing sleep deprivation position despite a sprained ankle. Later, when Asadallah was placed in stress positions or on his knees, he complained of discomfort and asked to sit. Asadallah was told he could not sit unless he answered questions truthfully. CIA detainees exhibit psychological and behavioral issues. Psychological and behavioral problems experienced by CIA detainees who were held in austere conditions and in solitary confinement also posed management challenges for the CIA. For example, later in his detention, Ramzi bin al-Shibh exhibited behavioral and psychological problems, including visions, paranoia, insomnia, and attempts at self-harm. CIA psychologists linked bin al-Shibh's deteriorating mental state to his isolation and inability to cope with his long-term detention. Similarly, Abd al-Rahim al-Nashiri's unpredictable and disruptive behavior in detention made him one of the most difficult detainees for the CIA to manage. Al-Nashiri engaged in repeated belligerent acts, including throwing his food tray, attempting to assault detention site personnel, and trying to damage items in his cell. Over a period of years, al-Nashiri accused the CIA staff of drugging or poisoning his food and complained of bodily pain and insomnia. As noted, at one point, al-Nashiri launched a short-lived hunger strike, and the CIA responded by force-feeding him rectally. On October 2004, psychological assessment of al-Nashiri was used by the CIA to advance its discussion with National Security Council officials on establishing an endgame for the program. In July 2005, CIA headquarters expressed concern regarding al-Nashiri's continued state of depression and uncooperative attitude. Days later, a CIA psychologist assessed that al-Nashiri was on the verge of a breakdown. Beginning in March of 2004 and continuing until his rendition to U.S. military custody at Guantanamo Bay in September 2006. Majid Khan engaged in a series of hunger strikes and attempts at self-mutilation that required significant attention from CIA detention site personnel. In response to Majid Khan's hunger strike, medical personnel implemented various techniques to provide fluids and nutrients, including the use of a nasogastric tube and the provision of intravenous fluids. CIA records indicate that Majid Khan cooperated with the feedings and was permitted to infuse the fluids and nutrients himself. After approximately 3 weeks, the CIA developed a more aggressive treatment regimen without unnecessary conversation. Majid Khan was then subjected to involuntary rectal feeding and rectal hydration. I don't even know how you would do that, which included 2 bottles of Ensure. Later that same day, Majid Khan's lunch tray consisted of hummus, pasta with sauce, nuts, and raisins, was pureed and rectally infused. How in the hell? Okay, never heard of that. Okay, additionally, sessions of rectal feeding and hydration followed. Ugh. In addition to his hunger strikes, Majid Khan engaged in acts of self-harm that included attempting to cut his wrists on 2 occasions, an attempt to chew into his arm at the inner elbow, an attempt to cut a vein in the top of his foot, an attempt to cut into his skin at the elbow joint using a filed toothbrush. The CIA seeks reaffirmation of the CIA's detention and interrogation program in 2003. Administration statements about the humane treatment of detainees raised concern at the CIA about possible lack of policy support for CIA interrogation activities. On several occasions in early 2003, CIA General Counsel Scott Mueller expressed concerns to the National Security Council's principals, White House staff, and Department of Justice personnel that the CIA's program might be inconsistent with public statements from the administration that the U.S. government's treatment of detainees was humane. CIA General Counsel Mueller therefore sought to verify with White House and Department of Justice personnel that a February 7, 2002 presidential memorandum requiring the U.S. military to treat detainees humanely did not apply to the CIA. Following those discussions in early 2003, White House press secretary was advised to avoid using the term humane treatment when discussing the detention of Al-Qaeda and Taliban personnel. In mid-2003, CIA officials also engaged in the discussions with the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and attorneys in the White House on whether representations could be made that the U.S. government comply with certain requirements arising out of the Convention Against Torture, namely that the treatment of detainees was consistent with constitutional standards in the 5th, 8th, and 14th Amendments. In late June of 2003, after numerous interagency discussions, William Haynes, the General Counsel of the Department of Defense, responded to a letter from Senator Patrick Leahy, I guess that's how you say it, stating that it was U.S. policy to comply with these standards. According to a memorandum from the CIA's redacted CTC Legal, redacted, the August 1st, 2002 OLC opinion provided a legal safe harbor for the CIA's use of its enhanced interrogation techniques. The August 1st, 2002 opinion did not, however, address the constitutional standards described in the letter from William Haynes. In July 2003, after the White House made a number of statements against suggesting the U.S. treatment of detainees was humane, the CIA asked the National Security Advisor for policy reaffirmation of the CIA's use of its enhanced interrogation techniques. During the time that request was being considered, CIA headquarters stopped approving requests from CIA officers to use the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. Because of this stand down, CIA interrogators with CIA headquarters approval instead used repeated applications of the CIA standard interrogation techniques. These standard techniques were coercive, but not considered to be as coercive as the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. At this time, sleep deprivation beyond 72 hours was considered an enhanced interrogation technique, while sleep deprivation under 72 hours was defined as a standard CIA interrogation technique. To avoid using an enhanced interrogation technique, CIA officers subjected Khaled Ben Atash to 70 hours of standing sleep deprivation, 2 hours less than the maximum. After allowing him 4 hours of sleep, Ben Atash was subjected to an additional 23 hours of standing sleep deprivation, following immediately by 20 hours of seated sleep deprivation. And I'm going to stop it here, then that way, this is a decent place to stop. So, anyway, I don't know how y'all feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it because I guess it just kind of goes along with whatever was going on at that time after 9/11. So, anyway, I will talk to y'all later. Y'all have a good afternoon. See y'all. Bye.